The next ones you're going to do are the vector subtraction. And again, when you think of subtraction, you think of adding the opposite. So I'm going to take a plus negative 2b in order to do this one. So this is the one that's on Alex just to show you the tools. Then I'll go back to the ones on our paper. And so on the vector subtraction, which would be 4, 5, and 6, we're going to change this to a plus a negative 2b, and then use our tools like we did before. So, I'm going to move a to the end of p. Move that over here. Now this is just going to stay 1a because there's no scaling to that one. A is the same thing as 1a. Then I'm going to move b to the end of a. Now b I want to make negative 2, and so I'm going to take that and I'm going to pull it backwards so that it's at negative 2.0b, which is the same thing as negative 2. Then I'm going to take my vector tool and I'm going to draw from p to the end of b, and that's all there is to that. So the only thing is here, if it's a subtraction, it's adding the opposite. So subtracting 2 is the same thing as adding a negative 2, and then I can draw my graph. So if we go over to the word ones where we have to construct them, same thing. We're going to start by moving a to p. So I'm going to move a to p. It's going to end up being right here. It's going to be at 1.0 until I scale it. So then I want to scale it to, this one says 1.4a. So I'm going to stretch that out a little bit. So now it's going to say 1.4a. Then I'm going to move b to a. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to put it here on the end. It's going to say 1.0b. But I want to do 1.4a plus a negative 0.7b. And so since this is a positive 1.0, I'm going to take that and it's actually going to push all the way backwards, and I'm going to keep going back until it says negative 0.7b. So this part will be gone and it will end up going in the opposite direction. Now I'm going to, oops, I forgot to write here, scale to negative 0.7. Then I'm going to draw the vector from P to B. So here's point P. I'm going to draw it to the end of B, and that's what my vector is going to end up looking like. Again, this part won't show up after I moved it. It will look here with the end of A. B ended up being negative and going in the opposite direction. So I'll just see that little triangle there once I get to the end. So number 5. Again, I want to think of this as negative 2a plus a negative b. So I'm going to start, move A to P. So it's going to start out and go like this. It's at 1.0a. However, I'm going to scale it to negative 2. So now I'm going to take it, push it backwards until it says negative 2.0a. This part down here is going to disappear. It's going to end up going in the opposite direction, negative 2. Then I'm going to move B to A. So B is going off this way, 1.0b, but I want it to be negative b. So scale to negative 1. So again, I'm going to push this backwards. It's going to end up being the same length, just going in the opposite direction. So now instead of pointing that way, it's pointing the other way. Once I have this one labeled negative 2.0a, this one labeled negative 1.0b, then I'm going to draw the vector from P to B. So starting at P to the end of B, and I'm just going to see that little triangle there when I'm done. One more of those, we are constructing 0.9A minus 1.7B. So move A to P again. So starting with A, I'm going to move it to P. It's going to be like that. It's going to say 1.0A. I'm going to scale it. So it's going to be 0.9. So it's just going to be a little bit shorter. I'm going to push the end back. And so now it's going to say 0.9A. And it's going to be a little bit shorter. We'll just say it ended there. Then we are going to move B to A. B is going this direction, 1.0B. But I'm going to scale it to negative 1.7. So again, I'm just going to push that backwards. And instead of pointing this direction, it's going to end up going in the opposite direction until you get negative 1.7B. So again, you won't see this bottom part because you pushed it backwards. You'll see A going to here, B going to here. This is going to be labeled 0.9A. This is going to be labeled negative 1.7B. Once I have those two vectors, I'm just going to draw from P to the end of B. And that's how you do those. So just to review that one more time using the actual ALEKS program. If I hit more practice here. Here I have negative A minus B. So I'm going to start by moving A. Instead of being a positive 1A, I wanted a negative 1A. So I'm going to push it backwards until I get to negative 1.0. Click to set it. So negative A is the same thing as negative 1.0A. Excuse me. I'm then going to move B to the end of that. Instead of having a positive 1B, I want a negative 1B since I'm subtracting B. So I'm going to grab that. Whoops, wrong one. Grab the middle one. Push that backwards all the way back in the opposite direction till I get a negative 1B. So now I have a negative 1A, a negative 1B. Once they're labeled correctly, I take my vector, I start on P, I pull it over to the end of B, and that's what I'm going to have when I'm done. It's a little slow at checking.